Welcome to the Daily Tokyo Hockey Show on the FIH YouTube channel with me, Sarah Juggins. It's day 7 of competition at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, and today we saw the completion of the men's pools matches, so we now know who will be facing who in the all-important quarterfinals. Joining the show to dissect the action that has taken place on the pitch are 3 big names from the world of hockey. Already a regular on the show is South Africa's Marcia Cox, a triple Olympian, a huge influence on hockey development in her home nation, and a self-confessed hockey nerd. So hello to you, Marcia.
Hi, Sarah.
Great to see you. Now, we're also hoping to be joined by Magrath Mengo, also from the African continent. She is just making her way to her device now, so we'll be joined by her in a minute. But Magrath, when she gets here, is a driving force in Namibia's emergence as a hockey nation. And in particular, Magrath led her team to qualify for a place at the 2022 FIH Indoor Hockey World Cup, which will be taking place next year. And finally, hot-footing it all the way from Tokyo is Ireland's Davy Hart. The goalkeeper is one of the most well-known and well-respected figures in the men's game, and he's pretty good between the sticks as well. In 2016, he led Ireland at the Rio Olympics. So hi to you, Davy.
Hello, ladies.
Great to see you. And that's hello to all the gentlemen out there as well, isn't it, Davy?
And gentlemen outside, yes, of course.
Davy, before we start looking at the hockey, I wonder if you could just tell us what it is that you've been doing in Tokyo in the last few days.
It's a great question, sir. I have been busy in a different capacity representing Team Ireland. I was one of 30 candidates for the IOC Athletes Commission elections, where the athletes in the village in Tokyo have the opportunity to vote for 4 candidates, as there is 4 positions to be filled. And I was one of those 30 candidates over there. So I was putting in some long, tough hours in the Japanese sunshine to try and speak and interact with all the athletes of the Olympic Village to try and get them to vote for myself. And of course, our wonderful sport to have a representative of hockey at the top table of the IOC.
Yeah, and it is so important, isn't it, for team sports such as hockey to have a voice there, because it's a commission that can have an awful lot of the individual sports. So great that you're doing that. What were your sort of main messages that you were handing out to the athletes? What's the campaign that you're fighting, if you like?
One of them was obviously depending on the countries who you were speaking to. If you were to discuss things with the Canadian athletes or the American athletes, it didn't really kind of cross their mind too much because they're so well supported already, and they have quite a strong say and voice within the sporting world as it is. But I was trying to interact with a lot of smaller nations who are often, feel that they're being overlooked or not helped out or as well resourced as many other countries. So I was trying to say that I would be the voice for a lot of the smaller nations as well as the team sports. And I was trying to implement a couple of other ideas which I thought could be good and could directly help out the athletes themselves. I can just give you one example, would be that each athlete that represents their country at the Olympic Games in whatever event has access to family and friends tickets, perhaps 2 or 4 tickets, something as simple as that that the athletes feel like they're actually gaining something and having their nearest and dearest with them in the most important phase of their sporting careers.
Brilliant. And you get the results that I believe on August the 4th, so we'll be able to let people know how you got on. But from us, really good luck with that. Now, without any sort of further ado, I think we can get on with discussing the action that we've seen today, and there was an awful lot of it. There were 8 matches. The first one, Germany women won 4-1. That sort of put an end to South Africa's, well, not quite.
Yeah.
Not quite. I was wondering, Marcia, if you could talk to us about that game and the impact it's had and what South Africa now need to do.
Yeah, well, I think that pool is pretty much still open. We know that South Africa play India tomorrow, and a 3-0 win for South Africa, 3 or more, could put them ahead of, well, it definitely would put them ahead of India. But GB play Ireland, and the result of that game could also help South Africa out and allow them to sneak into the top 8. Anything's possible.
It's all to play for in that pool, isn't it?
Yeah.
But just looking towards the top end of that table, I mean, Germany, another consummate performance from Germany. Do you think they're real medal contenders?
Sarah, I think we've seen it before with Germany, where they play the pool phase doing their job. And that's what we've seen from them. They've had moments where they've stood out, and they've had moments where they've just played, and we haven't seen anything really spectacular. Today we saw some really nice goals from them, really classy goals. and very clinical. There was nothing rushed or panicked about it. They built up really nicely and took their chances. But what we've also seen in the past, and they've got a lot of experience in their team, is that as they go into the knockout phase, they know exactly how to turn it on when it counts. Yeah. So I don't think that we can write them off as medal contenders. I think that they definitely have a chance.
Absolutely. And I mean, they're still actually vying with the Netherlands for top of that pool, which is quite astonishing, really, given the length of the competition. In other women's matches today, we saw Ireland's dreams of a quarter-final place take a large knock when they lost 1-0 to India. As we were saying, in all the different connotations, the Irish now need a win against GB. They need South Africa to beat India. For India's part, they brought their A game today, I felt, with a real display of patience, persistence, and some great attacking hockey. Davy, in that game, as in every other game, Aisha McFerrin again was excellent. That won't be any surprise to people who've seen her play in the past few years. But from your point of view, as a goalkeeper and as an Irish goalkeeper, what is it that makes her stand out so much? What qualities does she have?
Very simply, keeping her team in the game. I think making saves that she should be saving. There's often that you see some goalkeepers who might make an amazing save that gets the commentators, and if there was a crowd there, them cheering, but it's the bread and butter that sometimes separates the good goalkeepers from the great goalkeepers, saving what you should save. And Aisha's doing that very well. She's really matured into this Olympic Games as well, because of course it's a new experience in a new arena for the Irish girls as well. And again, having to face, I think, double figures on penalty corners against today and numerous field goal opportunities. She's really given the team the opportunity and the chance to stay in it. Should they try to go down the other end and get that 1-1, it's the difference of, say, battling, as you mentioned, an Indian side who are very well structured, very well put together in terms of knowing their game plan through Sjoerd Marijn and Janneke Schopman, the Dutch effect that you can see in their style of play. And Aisha came up trumps again today, and it's just unfortunate to be on the end of, I think it's the last 3 games in a row now of a loss, when you played so well between, it was the Dutch, it was against the Germans, and now again for India. So it's great and so good to watch, because she's been really excelling in not only here, but also when she's playing in my club team as well in the Netherlands and SV Kampong. And for the goalie coach, Nigel Henderson, back home in Ireland, watching it as well, you can say that he's very proud to see the performances that she's been able to put in. Yeah,
I mean, and as you obviously know her as a person, how does she get over the fact that she's put in these great performances, yet she's still quite often on the losing side? Is she so self-confident that's actually not a problem to her?
It was actually lovely to have the opportunity to be in the village myself in Tokyo. I was able to sit out in certain areas, of course, all masked up, and to see the Irish girls there. And I was able to have the opportunity to speak with Aisha a couple of times. She's still young. She's only 25. I know I'm sounding like I'm really old, but being 33, I have been there before in certain experiences, and there's no real fast forward button, to go through all of this. So it was good just to relate some experience of my own and, to listen what she's thinking. And of course, there would be frustration, absolutely, when you're coming off the game, and if there was a heart rate monitor on you, to see that your heart rate's going through the roof, and just how tough it is in the conditions over there, under all the kit and the helmet, the sweltering heat at times, and to be just so busy nonstop, there will be, of course, that fatigue levels, but also the frustration levels that I mentioned as well. And it's about managing those and dealing with that. I've often said to her, tournament hockey goes in ebbs and flows, and not to have your highs too high or your lows too low. And at the end of the day, they're only words, but it is a lot easier said than done. But I think that she's found herself a really good headspace, and you can see that again by her performance today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she wouldn't put in performance after performance if that wasn't the case. So no. Yeah, great. Moving on to the men's matches now. We now know the lineup, so I'll just go through those. We're going to have Australia facing the Netherlands. India will take on Great Britain. Argentina will play Germany, and Spain will play Belgium. But let's first of all take a look at how those teams got there today. And first of all, Spain. They drew with Australia. They were the first team to take points from the world number 1. I'll just stick with you, Davy, for a minute, because Spain is a team that you'll know well, both from the international circuit, but also from playing European club circuit hockey as well.
Yeah.
As I watched that match, I just felt that for so many of the Spanish team, this is almost last chance saloon at Olympics. You know, you've got players there who've got a lot of years, even more than 33 under their belt. So what were your thoughts as you watched that game? I mean, you must have been fairly delighted when Pau Kamada put that goal away to make it 1-1.
Very much so. I think, of course, when it comes to the Olympic Games, and of course, we have one of the biggest nerds when it comes to the Olympic Games here on the line with Marsha Cox, but we all get into it. You know, we all want to also support our own continents and the teams that are representing our continents. And Spain did fantastic today, like you mentioned, keeping the score down. Kiko Cortez in probably his last tournament, which he said to me, it definitely is his last event, which is so unfortunate because he's such a legend of the game, goalkeeping wise, to help his team to keep, like we talked about previously, about that 1-0. And then I think it was with less than 1 minute on the clock to receive that penalty corner, and Pau Kamada, now, it wasn't the best drive flick in the world, but the things were, it was hard, it was on target, and at the end of the day, made the goalkeeper work, but he just wasn't able to keep it out. A lot of them will be looking at this as their last tournament. Some of them have been described as Dad's army because they're so but you know, you've got David Allegre. He's in his, I think it's his 5th Olympic Games.
Yeah, only his 5th. I mean, come on, he could go for a 6th.
Well, yeah, I'd say he would push it, of course, with the quality he's still showing today to win that penalty corner going in the last phase. But this team really, as it was when I was reading the previews of the teams going to Tokyo, it was definitely the experience that the side has it. Now, on the flip side, there was the concerns perhaps about legs and the engines that some of these players still have. But you could see what it meant to the players at the end of the game. You know, there was some pans of shots of David Allegre in the dugout afterwards, just with his hands over his head, you know, almost emotional, what it meant, obviously, when they scored as well. But they're also buoyed by the fact that they've got such incredible flair and talent coming through with the likes of Kiko, with the likes of, oh, well, of course, I've met him many times. We played for Bloomingdale as well. What's his name again? I'm trying to struggle here. The magician who always goes to dribbling with the one hand. Yeah, no, struggling here. Yeah.
We'll put this one down to jet lag, and you can come back at the end with a player to watch.
Yeah, but they have really good quality and a good coach in Fred Sawyers as well. So it's been lovely to watch them kind of. Again, it's been a tournament of ebbs and flows as well for themselves. Xavi Leonard was, of course, who I was referring to. Yeah, so again, as you said, I didn't see anyone really stopping Australia so far, especially in the pool phase. You know, the demolition that they've had of so many different sides, and especially India, that 7-1 that they posted would have sent shockwaves throughout the hockey world. But it's good to see that they are actually human today, and the Spanish were able to come back and get that one on and that draw for themselves into the quarterfinals.
I mean, I was going to just ask Marsha about the Australian team, because to this point, they hadn't actually played a European side. And obviously the European sides have had an awful lot more competitive match play in recent weeks and months. Has this game shown some vulnerabilities that the Dutch will be looking at particularly with interest?
Yeah, I think definitely. But what we know from Australia as well is that when it comes to the knockout phase, they also step up their game. Of course, Rio, and also the disappointment from Rio. They definitely would have learned from it. We've seen that also as a trend with Australia. They definitely take their learnings and apply themselves in the years thereafter. So I'm quite convinced that the quarterfinal against the Netherlands, they definitely going to step up compared to today.
Right.
I do think, though, that the Dutch will probably also step up. So it's going to be, I think, a game that could fall either way.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, looking at the Dutch, they need to step up, don't they? I mean, again, I'm talking to a statistician and a hockey nerd here, but the Dutch return on their penalty corners so far in this tournament has been quite appalling. I mean, yesterday it stood at, I think, 1 from 22, and I haven't done the maths for today, but they need to definitely make some changes, don't they?
Yeah, certainly do. But from what I know from them in the past as well, is that when it comes to these types of set play, and David, you can also speak because obviously you're playing in this league and you know a lot of these guys. When it comes to these types of moments, they also do have the support and the ability to regroup, especially when it comes to the set pieces. And become confident sometimes overnight in their individual skill on the drag flick, so on the penalty corner. So it'll be quite interesting. I think Jip he has shown it so many times before, both in club and at international level, where he's able to change his performance on that penalty corner from one day to the next.
Yeah, and of course they've got a head coach who knows how to win as well, haven't they? So he'll be racking his brains. Just sticking with you, Marsha, for a minute, just talking about the Canada men and South Africa men's game. How did you feel about that? Because it's nice to end a tournament on a win, and goodness me, is there a team that deserved to win a tournament on a win? That would be South Africa. So, what will they be feeling now, do you think?
I know that they were extremely disappointed in their performance today, and you saw that in their reactions when the final whistle went. And I think that is really promising, because they set a standard and they hold themselves to that standard. Yeah. Coming into this tournament, Canada was a team ranked higher than them, and expecting a win from that game. Of course, you have your games that you target, so that was one that they probably targeted for a win. But throughout the tournament, they set their own standard, and the only way that they could be so disappointed like they showed today was because they didn't meet their standard. Yeah. And I think that is really promising, because it shows that that is the level that they want to be competing at, and that is the level that they want to be comparing themselves to other teams at. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they were gutted to go 4-3 up, and in the dying minutes of the game, literally seconds later, Canada scored the equalizer. So I think that was really disappointing. At the same time, every team has had their at least one disappointing game this tournament. So it's a bit unfortunate that for the South African men, it happened to be their final game, but they can be extremely proud. Even on their average day, to walk off with 1 point, I think says a lot about their potential and the future of this team.
Yeah, I mean, I know you can't second guess your government sports department, but will they look favourably on how South Africa play, and also the interest they've generated? Because it has, the world has been going fairly bonkers over South African hockey, hasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be interesting in terms of a government level. It's not always that easy and transparent. So to definitely say, when I know for a lot of European countries in particular, and also the Oceanic countries, if they set a performance target, and if you reach that, you get your government funding, or you don't. And for us, it's not always that transparent, which is unfortunate. But at the same time, I think that the support staff that this men's team have been really phenomenal. And I'm hoping that through their network of other professional sportsmen, we're also able to generate a lot of interest in terms of sponsorship and corporate backing.
Yeah, I really hope so. Just Davey, another team that hasn't perhaps got the results that they haven't finished in the top 4, but who have really shown promise is Japan. And I just wondered, how much of the Japanese games you've seen and what you thought of them, and what you think their future holds.
I actually also caught up with their coach Siegfried Aikman in the village as well, and was just able to discuss with him how I felt that they were like a breath of fresh air as well, similar to the South African side. The ability that they have to go forward, with the speed that they have, and some outstanding players like Tanaka that I would know so well. Sorry guys, unfortunately, as you can hear in the background.
What's his name?
Miley
the dog, making an appearance.
Please, could you just be quiet? Thank you. And at the same time, I think players are coming, that I've also faced against in the Dutch league, like Tanaka from the Japanese side, scoring so many field goals, but also the connection that he had with the coach, and you can see celebrating after a goal in this tournament, the hugging at the side. That's what the game's all about. That's what you want to see, just how much it means. Also, the disappointing part for them being the home nation and the hosts, that they wanted to have a home crowd behind them, which I think really could have pushed them on as well, because I actually thought, looking at their games over there, that they were improving game by game, because within the Japanese culture, from what I've just experienced only in the last 8 or 9 days being over there, how welcoming they are, how kind they are, how generous they are. Sometimes they take that onto the pitch a little bit too much, And if they had just had that ability just to flip the switch a little bit more kind of aggressively and to go like, listen, we're going to beat you man for man on this pitch, or woman for woman as it goes along, that will go a long way. And I think that's what Siegfried was alluding to when I chatted to him about also the mental aspect of things as well. That moving forward, that there's a lot of promising players there. It's a really young squad as well, and it's something that I'll be hopefully nice to watch as a neutral spectator. Like I said, also the South African men's side putting out teams where players wouldn't be so well known, but now they are because of what they're doing over there, which was really, really impressive to watch.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Argentina and New Zealand, they went head to head for the remaining qualifying place from Pool A. Argentina won that match 5-1. Marcia, what's changed in the Argentinian setup in the last between the first match they played and this one? Because they were lackluster to start with, and now they're looking like a team that, you know, even potentially could think about defending a medal, and we wouldn't have said that a little while ago.
No, I think, but we said this at the beginning of the tournament as well, Sarah, that this tournament is sort of gonna go, like David said, in ebbs and flows, and you're gonna have some teams that are gonna grow into the tournament and some teams that are going to, you know, have peak moments and down moments. And that's what we've seen with Argentina. We saw them really grow into the tournament and get comfortable in their play. I thought the game today was quite physical at times. And I think that is also something that, you know, they play with a lot of spirit and a lot of passion. And I think that they've come into that. And perhaps the start of the tournament also had that pressure of where the Olympic gold medalists from Rio. So we, you know, I think there was a combination of that psychological pressure. There's the pressure of the build-up that everybody has had that has been a bit disjointed at times, and then they've probably just also realized what their strengths are, and now you're seeing a lot more of typical Argentinian hockey come through.
Yeah, I mean, and talking about their opponents as well. We spoke at the beginning of the week. I think it was Roger who said that he admired the teamwork and the team culture of the New Zealand side. But I just wondered, looking at them today, is the facet that they're lacking a star within that, a match winner, someone who can turn a game? Because they were very steady and very solid in a very New Zealand way. But is that what they're lacking, do you think?
Well, I think that we've also seen them truly dependent on Russell in the penalty corners, and today it just didn't go his way. So I think you're absolutely right, and I think he's probably been one of the star players because of his specialist skill. But it would have been nice to see one or two more other players really stand out and be more of a threat to the opposition.
Yeah. Moving on, last couple of games were an all-European affair. We had Netherlands and Germany battling it out. I'll come to you first on that one, Marcia. You know, the Netherlands connections. What were your feelings about that?
Well, I think it would be nice because, you know, David and I both have Dutch connections in that regard. So perhaps we could have like a nice chat about it. But so, David, please jump in. I was not surprised by the result. I was really hoping that the Dutch would start coming into, you know, the performance that we know they're capable of. I can imagine extremely difficult to peak twice so quickly, you know, having won Europeans. Yeah. But I still have the feeling that we can't underestimate them. But today's game, they'll be disappointed. And I was actually quite too. I was looking forward to more of a head-to-head battle throughout the game and not it become one-sided. I don't know what you think, David.
I just think, what do you think, yeah, it's such a difficult phase right now. This whole tournament, you could argue that they really haven't hit fifth gear, and between that and perhaps the honest, brutal Dutch bashing that they're getting from their own media at home, and perhaps rightfully so when you set such high expectations, and you can imagine that coming off of the high of the victory in the European Championships, heading over here as continental champions, going, right, this is what we need to do, guys. There has been something missing, and they've also been many different interviews with many individual players being also very open and honest about the fact that they do recognize that it's not going well and they just don't know why. And sometimes that happens, you know. The way I can see it is that the key players that I would recognize from playing against them so often in international hockey, but also at club level, just seem to be too inconsistent at the minute. What I can see is that you expect big game players to be stepping up and standing up each time, and they're not. And the difference is that you come up against a Germany group who are really impressing me this whole tournament, to be honest, on the back of course, the European Championships, missing out on the gold medal just on shootouts. But to see the likes of players who, I'll just name one today, Tim Hertzbrook, who scored the beautiful reverse stick into the top corner. He's been a bit quiet, but they do have that ability to pop up and to add to their, if you want to call it, their turbos with their speed, with the likes of Velen, with the likes of Fuchs, with the likes of Ruhr. You know, this team that the Dutch faced isn't just a pushover. They are where they are in the world rankings for a reason, and the quality that they have. And you can see that the belief that they have, which is just a constant, typical German belief, if you want to call it that, because the usual expression that hockey is a game of 2 halves of 30 minutes and at the end the Germans win. Well, they're proving that over and over again, you know. And unfortunately, that the Dutch came out on what was a deserved victory for the Germans in the end.
Yeah. The other game, Belgium took on GB, and we were talking just became there about the slightly strange ending to that match, Davey. I don't know if you just want to talk us through how you saw that game unfolding.
Yeah, that's a good question, Sarah. Yeah, it was strange to watch in the way that the scoreline was 2-2, and there was perhaps a message received that they realized that for them to avoid GB to avoid crossing over against Australians, the current world number ones, you know, that 2-2 would have been enough. Belgium were also happy just to keep the ball in possession in the back four, just knocking it around, while the GB lads were happy to sit where they were in their defensive press and not step out. It seemed a bit of a disappointment because, of course, as hockey lovers from all over the world, you want to see open, fast, attacking play and up and down. But at the last 5 minutes, I don't think the umpires had to blow their whistle perhaps more than 2 times. And it was kind of a bit of a lull to what had been really quite an exciting game. Also, the controversy of, you know, was it a goal or wasn't a goal on the GB side, cleared off the line by Tom Boone. And that's what you want, you know, you want those kind of special moments in games. And I just thought it was a bit disappointing the way the last 5 minutes went. Yeah. But again, teams know what they had to do, and it's tournament hockey, and there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, and it's also really hot.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, it was really, and actually, 55 minutes of the game were quite enthralling. It was just that last 5, and if you turned on for those last 5, I think you'd have wondered what on earth was going on. And I'm pretty sure that Max Caldas and the Dutch team were screaming at the at the screen, saying, "Come on, do something!" Brilliant. There's, you know, we're sort of saying goodbye, unfortunately, to 4 teams now as the quarterfinals emerge. I just wondered if you could both name some players that you think have emerged as real potential stars of the game, particularly from those teams that we're saying goodbye to. You know, we've already mentioned Tanaka, but there are others who really, really have stepped up and are names for the future. So if I could come to you first, Marsha, who would you name check?
Well, of course, I have to mention the Kasim brothers. I think
he just stole what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry, David. Well, what I really love about them is that you know, you can't also discredit the South African staff and the preparation that they put into this event, given their circumstances and their challenges that they are faced with. But what I really like about both Kasim brothers is that for a long time in South Africa, people have always spoken about these 2 boys who have got tremendous talent and are extremely exciting, and they're going to bring something to our game as a country. And this was pretty much their first opportunity on this really big stage. I think Diane has been to the World Cup, but his brother Mustafa has been to a Youth Olympics or Youth Africa Cup, and that's it. He's 19 years old. But they really played free, and that is also compliments to their team and the style of play. It allowed them to play free, and because of that, they could show what they could bring. And they just took it to everybody, and you know, respecting the opposition, but at the same time, they made sure that the opposition would learn to respect them in return. And it would be nice to see them on these types of stages again and again and again. But I really like that they were also on the scoreboard quite regularly, or threatening the keepers as well. So it's sad to see them go, but it is what it is. Yeah.
And then they've certainly imprinted their names, in people's minds now, which is great.
Yeah.
Davey, as Marcia's stolen your players and I stole Tanaka from you, have you got anybody else to name check?
Just looking at Canada today, of course, bittersweet for myself, obviously, with the tussle that we had to get to Tokyo in the first place with Canada, but recognizing that the youngsters, they also have coming through, Keegan Pereira is considered quite an experienced player now with the amount of caps he's played, but age-wise, he's still quite young, and to see what he's still able to do, scoring another great goal with the reverse stick today, and Scott Sanderson was involved with, I think, a couple of goal mouth scrambles, but also look quite dangerous in there. And you're thinking these guys are going to be the ones for the future moving forward. And those two guys kind of stood out for me for Team Canada, and especially as, if you want to call them, the younger kind of players or the stars of the future.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, as usual, we've run out of time when we've still got loads and loads to talk about. But I just asked you, looking at those quarterfinals, can you see upset? Can you, we've got Australia versus the Netherlands, we've got India versus Great Britain, Argentina versus Germany, Spain versus Belgium. You know who you'd expect to win each of those matches, but can we see upsets in there? Davey, come to you first.
I think if you're going to look at it, it's obviously it's never a tournament without an upset, and we've already seen that with the historic victory of SA over Germany just yesterday or 2 days ago, depending on what time zone you're on. But I think looking at the quarterfinals setup, I don't see an upset happening. That's just my honest view. If I was to call it straight out, I would say Australia to beat the Dutch, the Belgians to win. I would think India might just nip that one against Great Britain. It's going to be also a very tough game. And then also, well, perhaps actually, Sarah, now that you've actually alluded to possibilities of a surprise to happen. Yeah, anything could happen, but I wouldn't expect those teams that are higher ranked to lose out in the quarterfinals. That would be my say right now. I could be completely wrong, but that's just the way that I've seen it.
I think we should have a little friendly bet.
We should have a bet or something. I know. Yes. Yeah.
Take it offline.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I agree with David on. Part of me hopes I'm wrong on the Australia and Belgium, but I do tend to agree just in terms of consistency of performance, and in the high pressure moments, it becomes a mental game. And I don't know if a team that has been struggling throughout the tournament will be able to, in the heat, have that mental switch at such a high pressure moment. So on those two, I probably do agree with David, but on the other, I don't think I could even call it an upset. I think that the way we see it, we've seen the other teams have their highs and their lows. Yeah. And I think it's just going to be about whichever team in those other two, or those other four out of those other four teams, like whoever can keep their discipline and keep all their men on the field, because we have seen also sometimes games where they've been lots of cards, and also it's going to be about the specialist skills again, so I can't pin one particular team and say that they are the favorites.
Yeah, but that's purely the simple answer of, say, the Dutch against Australia. Of course, it's going to be a titanic battle, but look at penalty corner conversion rate, which we already mentioned, and then you can see Australia on fire in that position, whether it's also direct flicks or just the sharpness of their rebound players today. Yeah. Blake Govers put in a rocket of a drag flick, and Cortez got a great save, but then only for Tom Wickham to put it with an upright reverse into the top of the corner. These are the moments that will separate it, and the Dutch are faltering there, obviously.
Yeah, but then at the same time, you can also argue that the Australians have shown more consistency in their full field play versus the Dutch. So it's not only the Dutch stats showing that they haven't picked up in those crucial moments in penalty quarters, but also during the full field play, they haven't exactly performed well and consistently.
Sure. Whatever it is, hockey lovers all over the world, of course, are going to be amazed by hopefully the quality that will be brought by all sides now into the quarterfinals, because this is now the business end of the tournament. And I for one, am really excited about watching these upcoming games.
Yeah.
And of course, tomorrow we're wrapping up the business side of the women's tournament, and you know, one of you two might still be representing your team as we're moving forwards. We'll see. But thank you very, very much indeed for joining us. A great chat as always, and yeah, really, really good dialogue about hockey there. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.